Oh, hello. We are just hours away from learning the winner of the Nevada caucuses. Put on some coffee. It's getting a little rough out there with Cruz still on the ropes after firing his communications director and Trump repeatedly branding the senator as a sick, dishonest liar. So what's going to happen tonight? Let's ask tonight's high-octane party panel. Michael Malice is here. He is the author of Dear Reader, a book you must get immediately. Meghan McCain joins us tonight, Fox News contributor, who also knows a little something about presidential politics. And Michael Moynihan. That face. Look at that duck lip. He is the Daily Beast columnist in residence this evening. Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you.
So, Meghan, I'm going to start with you. You know, I look at this race. I look at it was so populated at one point, but you still have a couple of stragglers. You have been in the middle of these situations. What is it about people who stay in who have no chance in hell of winning?
They want to sell books. They want their own TV shows. They're doing it for completely self-interest only in every capacity. Ben Carson, especially when I was watching his speech after the South Carolina primaries, I was so angry watching it because, again, I just think he's doing it for money and for publicity, and he doesn't really care about the party, and he's not thinking of things as a whole. Yeah. I know he thinks there's divine intervention and that God is somehow involved, but we have to start. If you are an anti-Trump voter, which I am, in all seriousness, we have to start narrowing out this field because he's taking a lot of votes away from other formidable candients that
Ben
could actually
Carson
go
against. A lot of votes. He's coming last in
he's
everything
taking
but
some away. I mean, for Ted Cruz, he's not helping right now.
But how does Ben do it? Like, if Ben is going to get the presidential nomination, if he's going to be the Republican nominee, how does he do it? Like, what's the big
He's
strategy?
not. There has to be an asteroid.
I mean,
is it an asteroid?
What am I, Mike Murphy? Am I like cashing checks here? I can't tell you. This man couldn't run for student council and win at this point. And the thing is that it's obviously true in the past. A lot of people stay on because they want to sell books and get TV shows. Ben Carson, by the way, the longer he stays in, the more money he loses, not just for his donors, but for himself. Like, it used to be that, like, President Obama, you remember when he rose to prominence because Obama, like, was celebrating him, and now everyone thinks he's a dope. Right? I mean, people, like, before he was an impressive guy, you buy his books, Healing Hands. Nobody I know would ever let that man anywhere near them in an operating theater now. He's losing money.
All right, what's going to happen tonight, Malice?
Well, I mean, I don't think Nevada is all that relevant, I think, but I'm going to disagree a little bit with what Meghan said. First of all, I'm amazed that Ben Carson inspired any emotion in anyone. So you're the first person that's actually been moved by Ben Carson. But I think
I had a very emotional night on the South Carolina primary.
As these anti-Trump people fall away, I don't know that they're going to consolidate. I think a lot of these people are just going to stay home, and I think in many ways Donald Trump has in the bag. But one of the reasons they're staying in is they're being personally attacked and humiliated, and it kind of sucks, especially for Jeb, to have to say, this guy mocked me and made me look like a beaten redheaded stepchild on national television, and he won, and I can't do anything about it. No man who's like an alpha male, like all these politicians are, including Hillary, is going to want to admit complete humiliating defeat on national television.
Well, maybe she will in November at the hands of, who knows, maybe it'll be Marco Rubio. Maybe it'll be John Kasich. He has been on the defense, playing little D, after stirring up a whole cauldron of feminist anger. Take a look at this.
How did I get elected? I didn't have anybody for me. We just got an army of people who, and many women who left their kitchens to go out and go door to door and to put yard signs up for me all the way back when, you know, things were different.
They were different, and women were in the kitchen where they should be. Wasn't he trying to say that women should go back into the kitchen? I think that's what we should infer from that comment.
That he was saying two things: back into the kitchen and don't vote for me, because they shouldn't have the vote. John Kasich told me that personally in New Hampshire. I mean, on Heartland Country, he told me that. No, I mean, come on, man. Like, look, I know what he's saying. I'm going to cut him like a little bit of slack. Number one, because in about a month, no one's going to even remember who he is. So, like, just cut him some slack. Second of all, he kind of misspoke. But at the same time, by the way, if you ask feminists then what the 1970s were like, women were consigned to the kitchen, and they were not. So maybe he's making a point that feminists should agree with, that it was a crappy time back in the 1970s, and or
maybe there were women.
He was a proto-feminist.
Yeah, maybe there were women who made that choice to stay at home with their kids, and I don't know why that's always such an insult to people. I'm always surprised like that. But I don't think what he was saying was so far off. To Michael's point, in 1978, like all the moms I knew, They were staying at home.
And Kasich needs to take a page out of the Trump book, because Trump has gotten himself immune to this kind of gotcha, oops, I misspoke politics.
Yeah, he apologized.
Right. So Trump doubles down, he gives the finger, and he just steamrolls people. And regardless of what you think about him, and there's plenty of negative to say, the Republicans should take a page from his book, because the Democrats will always accuse the Republicans.
Which one, The Art of the Deal?
It's the second greatest book in history, the favorite, the Bible. They should take a page from his book, because the left will always play the race card and the gender card, and the Republicans at some point have to say, you know what, play all the cards you want, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home.
Yeah, I'm the dealer here. Should he have apologized?
No, I mean, I understand what he was saying. In the 70s, there were a lot more women at home. I'm with you. I don't understand why it's such an insult. Poor working moms, they're always just like hit so hard by politicians when they're running. But he had said earlier that women were only coming to his rallies to get Taylor Swift tickets, or you're not here to get Taylor Swift tickets. And then on top of that, we have all this Gloria Steinem. Women are only coming out to vote because they want to meet men and get dates. And it's like, everyone stop quantifying what women want, because right now, single women in America is a huge demographic vote that all politicians should be reaching out to. I'm completely done with John Kasich in a lot of different ways. He needs to get out of the race, and he's not going to, simply because of ego.
And Ohio.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to delude myself into
running behind Trump in Ohio.
Yes.
He is. He's only
Is that enough?
behind.
I mean, is that really
Is
enough?
Ohio ever enough? As a person from Indiana,
Ask Warren Harding. Ask Warren Harding.
No. All right. Uncle Warren.
I should like him, though. He's more moderate, and I'm a more moderate. It's like everything he's like.
And he's got tender hands.
I should like him, and he just
Big,
annoys me.
And
floppy.
a bizarrely youthful haircut.
All right, tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern, Neil Cavuto will be anchoring FBN's live coverage of the GOP Nevada caucuses, and I'm going to be there as the results come in, with Neil holding his shoulder, handing him tissues. Don't miss a moment of it later tonight. And coming up, Bernie Sanders says the Pope is a big fat socialist and nabs some surprising celebrity endorsements. The panel returns with reaction, and later President Obama announced his plan to close Gitmo, blow to national security, a big boon for the Constitution. Judge Napolitano joins me to set everything straight. Please stay right here.
Push it real good.
All right, glad you're here. This week in an interview, Bernie Sanders chimed in on where Pope Francis fits in politically.
Do you think he's a socialist?
Yes.
What does it mean to be a socialist?
Well, what it means to be a socialist in the sense of what the Pope is talking about, what I'm talking about, is to say that we have got to do our best and live our lives in a way that alleviates human suffering, that does not accelerate the disparities of income and wealth.
Bernie, you're talking about Buddhism there, buddy. The Vermont senator is picking up more celebrity endorsements. Dick Van Dyke is swinging for the burn, along with Spike Lee, who says that Bernie will, quote, do the right thing. No word yet on the coveted endorsements from Spike Jones or Spike from Peanuts. That's Snoopy's brother. The parody panel, hey guys. They're back. It's Michael Malice, Meghan McCain, and Michael Moynihan. Tonight's letter is the letter M, apparently. Welcome back, alliteration. All right, so, so is an endorsement from the Pope far behind?
You know what, in all seriousness, the Pope delving into American politics, especially primary American politics, makes me so wildly uncomfortable. I didn't like it when he did it to begin with. People are saying his quote was taken out of context. I read the whole thing. He's talking about Trump. I don't like any of it. I also don't like Bernie Sanders trying to talk like if you're a person that gives to charity or you have faith, that automatically you're a socialist. Part of the problem is Bernie Sanders is completely rebranding what socialism means, and he's brainwashing an entire generation.
All right, but is it a compliment to say the Pope is a socialist?
Well, the Pope is clearly a socialist. I mean, he thinks that poor people matter as much as everybody else. He thinks that every soul is worth saving. And he judges people based on how much they give as opposed to how much they produce. That's a socialist worldview. And of course, having this medieval idea of the culture is also kind of socialist and religious at the same time. But I don't agree with Meghan. I don't think Bernie Sanders.
You agree with me on anything today.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm the contrarian on the panel. No, but I think that Bernie Sanders isn't brainwashing a lot of people. I think these people have been brainwashed by colleges and universities already, and he's just exploiting that.
Yes, that's a fair point.
Yeah, but I think she's right about the rebranding of socialism. I think that when he goes out and sells it so simplistically as something benevolent and awesome, he's doing a great disservice to humanity. Let's talk about the important endorsement here, and that's the one of Dick Van Dyke. Has Hillary Clinton already killed him?
I mean, look, Conrad Bain threw his support behind John Kasich today. Yeah, the Dick Van Dyke vote is really just going to turn everyone towards Bernie Sanders.
Conrad Bain.
Yeah,
he is dead, yeah.
Well, you know, this culture killed him of the greed and the capitalism. By the way, Bernie, I had read that quote. I hadn't seen the clip. I mean, he's like sub-Carson Ambien level at this point. I mean, this campaign is taking it out of him.
The guy is 94 years old,
I know, and he was like,
he's every day screaming on the stump.
I believe that maybe the Pope is socialist. I mean, he was just asleep in this. But the Pope, number one, is socialist. That's fine. I don't. I mean, shouldn't surprise anyone. The second thing is, I have to also disagree with Megan here on one thing. The Pope, Pope John Paul II. Involved himself in politics in a very advantageous way. When in the Cold War he got involved in his home country of Poland. I don't mind it so much. I mean, if that, and it's not going to sway anyone if the Pope's saying that you shouldn't build walls to keep people out.
Poland was a great developer of free market thinkers.
Yeah, I mean after the destruction. Sure. But the other thing to point out here is that Bernie has been rebranding his own brand of socialism too. He keeps on pointing out at any opportunity that I'm a democratic socialist, meaning, I'm going to reference Sweden and Norway and Finland and everything, when in the 1980s, and the thing about Bernie, he's been very consistent, people love this about him, in the 1980s he was praising Nicaragua at every given opportunity, which was a Marxist-Leninist dictatorship, and he also had a lot of kind words to say about Cuba. So I don't know if that's democratic socialism.
And the other thing with Sanders...
Last word, we've only got 10 seconds.
Historically, socialists and communists aren't comfortable with religion, so he had to have some cognitive dissonance when the Pope came out in his favor.
Oh, boom, snappy ling-ling.
Mic drop.
There we go.
Mic drop.
All right, the panel returns a little bit later, and there is news today that the government wants to get into more iPhones than just that one in San Bernardino. More on Apple versus the FBI. That's coming up. But first, Judge Napolitano here with the latest on President Obama closing Guantanamo Bay. What's he doing? Please stay here. Great. This is Michael Moynihan was just saying, that's the original emo. That's Screamo. That's not even Screamo. That was Walter. All right. Very good. Hi. Welcome back. Apple and the FBI still locked in a battle over encryption. In court, Apple is fighting a court order to assist the FBI in cracking their own encryption programming on an iPhone used by one of the San Bernardino shooters. Meanwhile, we learned today that the Justice Department has requested that Apple help investigators in getting data from locked Apple devices in at least 12 other unknown cases throughout the country. Now, that said, a new Pew Research poll out today says 51% of Americans side with the FBI, only 38% saying Apple should protect its codes. 11% have no answer, but they're probably voting for Ben Carson. I bet my panel has the answer. And they are back, Michael Malice, Meghan McCain, and Michael Moynihan. So first, let's talk about the public. They are so wrong on this issue.
Yeah, they're very wrong on this issue. And I think that the idea that this is to prevent terrorism, this kind of trade-off of liberty for safety, is something that you can reliably count the American people to be on the side of trade-offs for safety, none of which have really ever trade-off for safety. It's the idea of it, it's the feeling of it. But, the interesting thing about this is, after the Snowden revelations, I had the kind of perception that the government could read and see everything. And the fact that they can't get into this iPhone and try to, reset the password, and this is why this all happened, is unbelievable to me, that the fact that, they're actually going to Apple and saying, we can't do this.
No, it's as though my mom is heading the FBI investigation, and she's calling me saying, oh my gosh, I think I locked myself out of the phone. I tried 9 times, and he just can't get in. What should he do? I don't think my mom
talk like that?
No, she doesn't. Not at all. And she hates it when I do that accent, because that doesn't represent her at all. Do you think this is all marketing on Apple's?
My biggest problem when it comes to terrorism in general is that I don't think the United States has enough. We're not doing enough to prevent cybersecurity and cyber terrorism. I think what we should do, the American government should put pressure on all the geniuses in Silicon Valley and say, listen, these bad guys are trying to get us. Can you come help us put up our firewall or whatever? I'm far from a tech expert, and try and help us track these people in a more, a sufficient way. And I think part of the problem is, and we disagree on almost everything having to do with foreign policy, so just bear with me because it's going to be another thing no no one agrees with me with. There's an impression, that, you know, Silicon Valley doesn't really care about national security, and they're making so much money off of just having their companies in America. And I just, for one, would like them to come up and step forward, Mark Zuckerberg and people from Apple, and say, we understand why you're stressed out. We understand your anxiety, and we want to help you. But I also understand that, you know, if there's some secret code that you can get in everyone's phone, I don't trust the government to have that in their own hands. I don't even trust the government to handle my mail in the post office anymore.
Well, I don't trust that the government would be transparent about that at all. I don't believe them when they say we just want to get into this one phone, especially when we hear that there are 12 active cases in many different states where they're trying to compel Apple to get into these locked phones.
Yeah,
Michael, how would you like to respond?
I disagree with Megan for the third time. They do see that there's a national security problem, but the national security problem is the federal government. They're the enemy. They want to get into every single phone explicitly. They used to have that power, and now thanks to technology, they no longer have that ability. And to watch the FBI on TV say there's nothing we can do is beautiful. It's not that we're going to vote for Justin Amash or Rand Paul or Ron Paul that's going to make us free. It's technology that's going to have the federal government shackled and allow people to have control over their own information, which is, according to Roe v. Wade at the very least, a constitutionally protected right.
The other thing to point out about this is that terrorists, we tend to think that they are not stupid.
Yeah.
And if the government somehow gets a golden key to all Apple products, all you have to do is encrypt it in a different way. There's plenty of third-party encryption software out there that is not made in the United States that the government has absolutely no control over and can't compel any companies to give them the keys to if they could do that in the first place. And the only thing you do is you do an end run around it. The second this is publicized that Apple is giving away the keys to the kingdom, you just move to a different platform.
Yeah, you move to a different platform. That's what people will do. I think that's why Apple is being so aggressive. They also don't want to set the precedent. And you're absolutely right. I mean, terrorists know that they're being surveilled. They know that the federal government is watching them and listening to them. And Michael's absolutely right about technology. There will be a lot newer technology. There will be ways of encrypting whatever. They won't even use the term encryption. And the law will never be ahead of that curve.
I still think Silicon Valley could do more to help out and quell my fears, at least on some level. And I also think,
but if you
look
at some of the documentation from Edward Snowden, he shows how many times big companies like Google, Facebook, and Apple have complied with the warrants that we know about. I mean, the number of times they have complied with the government, it's astronomical. And those are all the ways that when people learned about that, they realized that their personal security was being compromised. That's why Apple was forced to create more robust encryption.
Two quick things. Number one, I still don't understand why they just can't get a hacker to hack into this one specific phone and give them whatever we need. I just don't understand why it can't be that simple. Number two, I want to do everything possible, including if you want to read all my emails and you want to look into my phone, I will do anything and everything to prevent a terrorist attack from happening. I know you and I, and Michael Boyne-Hanks, I know you well enough. We disagree on that, but it's just not the same priority.
But that doesn't mean, just because you give the federal government access to your emails, it doesn't mean that it's going to negate the threat of terrorism.
And I'm not a terrorist, so I have no interest in having the government have access to any of my data. And if you want your data to be public, put your password up on your Twitter. I mean, it's absolutely absurd that I escaped the Soviet Union. I don't need the government reading my emails and hearing my phone calls. That's exactly what my family left.
We have to go. Thank you guys so much. Michael, Megan, Michael.
Thank you.
And yummy M&Ms.
We're even kind of matching with blue. It's like really good.
Coming up, Dana Perino here with the do's and don'ts of boosting a sluggish presidential campaign.